Hey everyone, my name's Kendall and welcome back to my channel. Today is February 1st, so I am doing my January wrap-up. So I'm really proud of myself this month because I read quite a bit, as you can tell from the title. So a little backstory. 2017 and 2018 were very difficult years for me, just in every sense of the term. Any way life can be difficult, it was for me. Those past 2 years. So reading wasn't really a priority. It just wasn't something I did a ton. I wanted to, and I always felt so guilty that I wasn't reading as much as I wanted to, but it just wasn't something that was occupying my mind. In both 2017 and 2018, I set my Goodreads reading goal at 40 books and then failed miserably both years. In 2017, I read a total of 12 books. For some people that's a lot and that's great, but I set it at 40 and then read 12, wow. So then 2018 I was like, you know what, gonna keep it at 40 to see what we can do. And last year I read 21 books, so I did better, but it's still not 40. Still not a lot. So then I decided, you know what, this year maybe let's just cut it down from 40, because maybe the 40 is just intimidating. So I made the huge change to 30. I set my goal at 30. And now this month, the month of January, I read 15 books, which is more than I read the entire year of 2017, and I'm halfway up my goal already. I started reading, I think the 5th is when I picked up my first book. And then I was just reading a ton, so then I kind of got it in my head, could I read, could I get halfway there? Could I read 15? And I could. I'm gonna talk about those books now, I guess. Let's get into the actual video. Yeah, and I think one thing that helped with reading a lot of books is I kept changing up the genre I was reading. I very rarely read the same genre back to back. I did a couple times because sometimes you get in that mood, but yeah, I kept changing it up. And I didn't go off any TBR, even though I did create a January TBR. I decided if you watch my 2019 reading goals, I said that I'm done making TBR, so I threw that out the window and really just read what I wanted to read, and that helped a lot. And I also read quite a bit of contemporary this month. I read more contemporary this month than I'd normally read in a year, and I think I've discovered that I like contemporary a lot more than I previously thought. Let's get into the books. So the first book I read this month and this year is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I've owned this for I think since the summertime, and I've been wanting to read it for years now because I've only heard good things about this book, and I loved this book so much. It's funny, it's relatable, it's adorable. I love the characters, the romance. Every time Levi is in a scene, you can't help but smile. It's super relatable for being a young adult. I also didn't expect the emotional side of this book within the family and stuff, so I cried in the middle. The middle of this book is pretty emotional, and I cried a lot, and it was just kind of one of those unfortunately relatable things. I don't know, I just really loved this book. It made me so happy, and I was yes, it was just so good, and I'd recommend it to everyone. And I gave this book a 5 stars, so I'm really glad this was my first read of the year because I really enjoyed it, and that's always good to get your year started on the right foot. And also, one thing I didn't realize about this book, which may have made me, which I don't know, I don't know if I'm completely stupid, but I think is I did not know that this book was connected to Carry On. I didn't know those two books were connected, and I own both of them. I hadn't read either of them. And I definitely knew enough about both books to have made the connection, but I just never did because I don't think it was something I ever just thought of, you know? It just wasn't on my mind. So then reading this, and she says, and I think it said Simon and Baz, and that sounded familiar to me, but I was I get my mind was just probably because I've heard about this book. But then when it says her fan fiction is called Carry On, I was oh, I felt kind of an idiot, but I don't know. But then I had to read Carry On. So my next read of the month was Carry On, also by Rainbow Rowell. Fangirl, it's about a girl named Kath who's starting university, and she loves fan fiction and writing it, for a series called the Simon Snow series, which is very much like this world's equivalent of Harry Potter, even though Harry Potter does exist in this world. And her fanfiction is called Carry On. So then this book is using those characters basically from the Simon Snow series and stuff like that. Yeah, so basically it's about a guy named Simon who like goes to a wizarding magic kind of school, and his roommate Baz, who he's hated his entire life, is also there, and then it's gay as hell basically. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4.5 because like I got to the end of it and I loved it, and I liked the writing and I liked the story, but the way I described it when I wrote my review on Goodreads is that it's like at the end, like while reading this, I was putting together this puzzle in my mind, but along the way like I lost a couple pieces and I don't know where they went. So at the end it's like there's this puzzle that's essentially finished and it's beautiful and you can tell what the picture is, but it's just like missing a piece or two, so it's just not quite like as satisfying as you wish it were. But like I still loved it and I love the characters, and I'm very excited for Wayward Sons. And there's like, I don't know, I only caught one, there may be more in here, but there is like one little connection right at the end to Fangirl, and like I love shit like that. I was like, yes, that I don't know, it made me happy. Overall, very excited. I read these 2 books. Now I've read 3 Rainbow Rowell books because I've also read Eleanor Park. So let me know what the next one I should pick up is. Probably like Attachments, Landline, I don't know. Well, let me know. Alright, and the next book I read is one that I wasn't planning on reading, but I think reading Fangirl put me in a contemporary mood. And it was a book I just bought at the beginning of the month, and that is Looking for Alaska by John Green. And you guys, I fucking loved this book. Was not expecting to love it as much as I did, like at all. I've always said that if I were to read any John Green book, this would be the one. I knew some stuff about it, like I knew like what the event was, like that caused like the before and after and stuff like that. I don't know, like I thought I'd read it and be like, oh yeah, like I would have loved that in high school, and like I definitely think I would have loved this in high school, but I am kind of glad I read it when I was older, just because I don't know, I feel like it gave me a different kind of perspective on the characters, and I feel like I was able to see their flaws and stuff better than if I read it when I was like 15. Yeah, I think everyone and their mother knows what this book's about a guy who goes to boarding school, makes some friends, crazy adventures, but it's just like John Green, his writing is so beautiful, which I knew it would be because he just speaks beautifully. Like if you watch Vlogbrothers, you know that. There's so many times I was just like, oh my god, like he wrote that, he like stringed those words together, and here I am just crying. I cried so much, like at the end I was just like, it just was one of those books that made you like feel every emotion that's like humanly possible. And don't get me wrong, there were definitely parts that did make me kind of like cringe a little. I was like, oh, like that's a little too angsty, but like overall I just liked it. It was so good and just made me think about life, and yeah, so now I am definitely inclined to maybe read more John Green. Like I have Turtles All the Way Down and I really want to read that. Yeah, I love this book way more than I thought I would, which is always a good surprise. I gave it 5 stars. Alright, and after I finished Looking for Alaska, I like was still kind of in a contemporary mood, but I didn't want to read another contemporary because I only have so many on my TBR and I didn't want to just like whip through them all this month and then not have any. So I decided to finish a book that I started a very long time ago, and that is Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. I started this back in like June or July, and it took me, I don't know why it took me so long to read it. This book is about werewolves. There wasn't anything wrong with it. Like it was a little like kind of cringy at times, but like nothing inherently wrong with it. I gave it a 4 stars because like I said, it was good. I like the characters. Like I was just never quite in the mood for it, you know, like whenever I had time to read. So I had like 100 pages left. So I read those, and after reading those 100 pages, I really enjoyed the ending, and after reading it, it did put me in the mood for this book. So then I read Linger and Forever. And I loved these books. I gave both of these 5 stars. Overall, I loved this trilogy way more than I thought I would. I like expected going into it to be something that like my 13-year-old self would have loved, and it to be like cringy and like over the top romantic and just like I don't know, just like super cheesy. And like I said, Shiver was a little cringy, but like Linger and Forever like really weren't. Like I love the story and the characters, and I like when I finished Forever I cried for like 10 minutes. I just sat there crying. I loved these so much. So like I said, they're about werewolves, and I loved the romance in this book. It was just so nice, like not having a love triangle, which like I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I hate the love triangle, like we need to be over it. Like I don't have that opinion on it, but it is quite nice not having one. I said when I wrote my Goodreads review that like these books are about surviving and they're about living, but even more than that, they're about choosing life. And it was, yeah, just like about really broken, damaged characters and them all coming together and helping one another find their way. And I really loved these books, and it reminded me how much I love magical realism. Magical realism has always been one of my favorite genres. Like the Shadowhunter books are my all-time favorite, but I just like don't read it a ton. Sometimes I like forget that it's my favorite genre, but then every time I read it I'm just like it just makes me so happy. So yeah, these books definitely like reminded me of that love, and I'm just overall so glad I read these books. So thank you, Maggie Stiefvater. And now I really, really want to read The Raven Cycle. So I'm trying to make it a goal to read a Harry Potter book a month. So I read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I read the first book, was it in 2017? I think I read Philosopher's Stone in 2017. So I was like, okay, I should probably read the second book now, because it was like short, and I was like, all right, might as well. I'll give it a 4 stars. I have never read the Harry Potter series, and I don't know, right now, like, I totally get how reading these when you were a kid would be like the most fun thing, and like to go like to be the same age and like read them as they're growing, and like can totally understand how people love these and how they're so important. But now like being 19 and reading these for the first time, I'm just like, yeah, that's a book. It's there. Like I get that the world's cool, and like I don't know, like right now I just don't really care about any of the characters, and yeah, I just don't really have like an attachment to it, so I just read it and I'm like, okay. So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I obviously do plan to read the rest of them, and I think maybe as the characters get older and like the series gets more developed, I'll probably learn to care more. But right now they're just like books, and like don't love it, don't hate it, it's just, yeah. So 4 stars. Next was another book I picked up at a thrift store at the beginning of the month, because I want to get into more like mystery, thriller, adult books. So I read The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. This book is about a woman named Anna, who's getting played by Amy Adams in the movie, and I'm super excited about that. That's fantastic casting. But she has agoraphobia, which means she doesn't leave her house. So she usually watches her neighborhood out her window, usually with a camera in one hand and a drink in the other. And obviously as you go, things are revealed about her life and about the neighbors and all their lives in the neighborhood, and it was really great. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. The writing was fantastic. It was really one of those where you're just like, when you're reading and things get revealed, it's just like, oh shit. And like, it did really make me want to read more like mystery thrillers. I really love the writing of this book, and would love other books from AJ Finn. I'm really glad I read this one, because it was definitely different from things I normally read, but I really enjoyed it. Okay, and after that I was staring at my TBR pile, because that's what I do to try and decide what I want to read, is I literally sit on my floor and look at my TBR books, and then just kind of like whatever my like mind gravitates towards is what I'll read. And just like nothing in the moment was like really like catching my attention, but like I was like, I'm not ending up in like a slump, or I'm not just not gonna read anything. So I decided to go for a good old reread of one of my all-time favorite standalone books, Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I love this book so much. This is the book that after I read it the first time, of course there are like tons of books that I've read and have made me want to be a writer, but it was specifically after I read this book that I was like, I want to do this. So I decided to pick it up because this is the book that I could pick up and just, no matter what mood I'm in, no matter how I'm feeling, like I could pick it up and literally open it to a random page and just start reading. I love it. I love the writing. I love the characters. I love the story. 5 stars, obviously. Yeah, I'm really glad I reread it. Obviously, if you don't know, you probably do. It's a Queen of Hearts prequel story, basically how she became the Queen of Hearts, and I just love it. I love seeing like the descent. It's so well written, and I find Kath, our main character, to be very relatable, and at the end you're like, yes, you become evil, you show them all. Okay, I literally just finished filming, as you can see my hair's up, and realized I forgot to talk about a book. I don't know how this happened, because I don't know. I also read One of Us is Lying. I don't know how I did this. Something fell off. I knew something fell off, but I really enjoyed this book. I liked the mystery in it. I thought a lot of the kind of high school problems were pretty relatable. I mean, obviously on a much larger scale, because most people don't end up accused of murder in high school. But I gave it a 4.5 stars. It had really great character development, which is like one of my top things in a book, is like, if there's good character development, I will love the book. I thought it was interesting. It kept me intrigued the entire time, and I thought the writing was really good. This book is basically about 5 high school students who are all in detention together, but while they are in detention, one of the students dies, and it's about that mystery, essentially. There's another book by Karen M. McManus called Two of Us is Lying, but that doesn't follow the same characters, does it? I don't know. Let me know, because I don't know. But yeah, I can't believe I forgot to... I don't know what is up with me, but yeah, I like this book, so there we go. And then after that, I decided to pick up We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I've had this since the summer as well. I think I got this the same time I got Fangirl. So this book is about, think of like the whitest family you can imagine, like button-up salmon shirts and like boat shoes, and like they can go to the Hampton Islands, and like Gossip Girl essentially kind of vibes. Like, it's literally about the Sinclair family, who like the family owns an island that they spend their entire summer at. So we follow Katie, I think is how you say it. Maybe it's Caddy, but if we've learned anything from Mean Girls, I think it's Katie. And basically just the family and the drama in them, and Katie herself had an accident one summer, so it's her trying to like piece together that. Major drama in the whitest family I've ever seen. And I love this book. 5 stars. I've been liking shorter books recently, so I enjoyed that aspect of it. And I love the writing of this book. It was different from anything I have read. Next up, I decided to read some dystopian, because I love dystopian, one of my favorite genres. So I decided to pick up The Murder Complex by Lindsay Cummings, because I've owned it for a while. I gave this book a 3.75. It's about a girl named Meadow and a boy named Zephyr, and them kind of discovering the way that the people in this world or in this area, it's like someplace in Florida, are ruled or controlled, and like there's something called the murder complex. And like, so my main thing with this book is that the pacing was very awkward, and by that I mean it was too damn fast. It just went so, like, everything was going so quickly that you couldn't really like grasp what was going on. Like, there were so many times when I like couldn't picture like the scene, like picture, like it wasn't like, I was like, wait, where are we, like what is happening, what is this, like I couldn't wrap my head around it because it was just going so fast. And I also couldn't really create any sort of attachment to the characters because I just didn't get that, like, it was just too fast to like create an emotional attachment to them. And so that was like my main kind of issue with this book. But overall, it was like an interesting concept and world. It also like there's not a ton on the pages, as you can see. And because it was so fast paced, I read this book at like 100 pages an hour, which I'm like the slowest reader. So that was like, I mean, that just says it all right there. That the fact that I could read this at 100 pages an hour. I thought the fight scenes are actually really well written. And like there were parts where I was like, oh yeah, like this is good writing, but like overall the pacing of it was just way too fast. If I like see the Death Code around, maybe at a thrift store, I'll probably pick it up, or if I don't, maybe try and find it at my library. But like I'm not in a huge rush to like, I'm not gonna go out and buy the Death Code. I would be interested in it, you know, if it came my way. Alright, and then the next book I read was some more magical realism, and it was a book I ordered this month and then came and I had to read it right away, and that is Keeper by Kim Chance. Kim Chance is an author, and she's part of the, obviously, Kim Chance the author is an author, but she has an AuthorTube channel, and I have watched her for years now, and she is so sweet and adorable, and her writing advice is fantastic. She's like helped me so much, and like honestly I wouldn't be writing my book if it weren't for her, I don't think. So this is her debut novel. January 30th was its 1-year anniversary, so I finally got around to buying it and reading it. So it's about a girl named Lainey who finds out that she is from a long line of witches who are meant to protect the grimoire of their coven, because there is someone who wants it real bad. So it's about her kind of discovering that and other things within the world. You know, basically like that the world isn't all that you thought it was. I gave this a 4.5 stars. I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the world. The first half was a little slow, but I really enjoyed the second half and the ending, and the sequel comes out in September, and it's like, oh, I don't want to wait that long. It's called Seeker the sequel Seeker. The writing of this was like, if you watch Kim Chance's video, you can just totally see her in this, and that's really fun. And the writing is very smart. Like there are so many times when I was reading it and I was like, I like that. But overall it was a really great book, a really great debut, and it's just like cool to see someone's journey like that, of seeing her like writing and then getting an agent and then getting a publishing deal and going through like the whole thing. And it's just like so inspiring, and yeah, overall I'm excited for Seeker, the sequel, and for all the other upcoming projects that she has. Right now she's working on a book, you guys should check out her channel, I'll link it down below, called Something of the Terrible, which is like takes place in the 1920s, and that book just sounds so cool, so I'm excited for her to write that and see her journey with that book as well. Again, just like love magical realism so much, it makes me so happy. Okay, we're at our last 2 books, finally. This video is long. So the next book I read was For One More Day by Mitch Albom. I love Mitch Albom, he's one of my all-time favorite authors. So this is one of his books I have that I haven't read yet, and Mitch Albom just has this way of creating stories that just make you appreciate life, the people in your life, the things in your life, like you just end up crying a lot, and just like, I don't know, he just has this ability, it's like a super power of his to like write just these human stories. This book, basically in its simplest definition, is about a boy and his mom, and what would you do if you had one more day with someone that is no longer around or in your life. It's just real and raw and emotional and beautiful. 5 stars, of course. Mitch Albom's books, all of his books are pretty short, but they pack a punch. They're just good, and I would recommend them to every single person. And the last book I read this month was another magical realism, and that was Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins. This is about a girl named, shit, what's your name? I literally just finished this book. This book is about a girl named Harper who ends up with basically superpowers. She becomes a paladin, and she has to protect this boy named David. Again, another kind of the world isn't what you thought it was, and her trying to like come to terms with like this is her life now, because she was like the perfect student and like was on all the things and the head of everything, and you know, like she was gonna go to Cotillion. And I enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I would. I gave it a 5 stars. I had just a great time reading it. I laughed a lot. I liked all the characters, and it just felt like very real of like her journey of like discovering all about this world, of her being like, oh, wait, being like, is this cool or is this scary? Do I want this or do I not like it? I like the writing, I like the story, I loved the romance in it. Thing is though, I'm pretty sure this is a trilogy, And from what I've heard, people like this book but don't really like the second or third book. So I don't know if I'm going to read the second or third book. Like, I'll probably enjoy them because, I don't know, I usually like things that most people don't. But I just, like, I'm not in any hurry to, you know, like, I'm not gonna, like, race out to the bookstore to get them. Like, as of right now, I'm pretty just, like, content with how this ended. Another book I'm very glad I read, and that magical realism. I just love it so much. Those are all the books I read in the month of January. Really enjoyed most of the books I read. Oh my god, the sun. There we go. Now, I am not gonna have another month like this, I don't think, where I read 15 books, because February for me a priority is writing, and I also now am behind kind of on like TV shows and stuff. Mainly in January, the 3rd season of The Grand Tour came out, and I haven't watched any of it because, like, when I had free time I was reading. So now I want to, like, catch up on things like that. I want to watch, like, the Ted Bundy things. I, like, keep track in my bullet journal of all the books that I read and, like, their star ratings and stuff. So then at the end of the month, I do a little wrap up. So the total number of pages I read this month was 5,069, which is pretty impressive. I think that's like 160-ish pages a day or something, maybe 150 pages a day that averages out to, which is like pretty good. My average star rating was 4.65, which is real good. The longest book I read this month was Carry On, which is 517 pages. The shortest book I read was For One More Day, which is 197 pages. And then, because I'm a crier and literally cry at every book, I decided I should say the book I cried the most at, which was absolutely sobbed, and that's considering I cried for 10 minutes after Forever. Just think how much I cried at that book. I was a mess. That was my reading in January. I'm very proud of myself. I'm glad I got a good start to the year. Let me know some of the books you read, if you read any of the same ones. I don't know, probably unlikely, but it's possible. Or just what your favorite read was this month. But that is all for this long ass video. I will see you guys on Tuesday with another video, but until then, happy reading, happy writing, goodbye.